Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my first ever park war. You may remember a few months ago I did a ride war series. It was only 2 episodes long, it didn't really last very long. If you want to see this one turned into a series, however, do tell me in the comments. You may think that the Park Wars idea, as well as just another side point, isn't very original, and granted it's not. I've tried to put my own different spin on that, and that will become evident later on in the episode. In fact, it will become evident right now as I move on into the first category, which is roller coasters. So, in pitting these two together, I've tried to think of a kind of creative way to score the coaster category. So, as you can see, the rules for each round will be on the side bar there. So, pretty much all 19 coasters at both parks. Obviously, Blackpool have 10, so they do technically have the advantage. And they're listed in order of my personal opinions. I've been on all the coasters in this list, and my personal opinion of which one sits where in the rankings. So you can see here how it's going to be scored. If you get in first place, you score 19 points, the maximum points. Second, 18. Third, 17. So on until in 19th place you only score 1 point for your park. And then at the end of the round, they're added together. So let's just get straight into it. In at 19th place is Steeplechase, scoring 1. Followed by the Octonauts coaster. Followed by the Blue Fire, scoring, I believe, 3 points there. Infusion next. You may think it is scoring rather low for a big thrilling ride, but I just find it rough, and the layout is trying to do too much for what it is, in my opinion, with those SLCs. 15 is the Runaway Mine Train. 14, we've got Avalanche. In at 13 is the Spinball Whizzer. At 12, we've got Nick Streak, a really good wooden coaster. Not the best at Blackpool. In fact, it is the weakest of them. I'm not going to say worst, but I'm going to say weakest. Apart from, obviously, Blue Fire, which is at the bottom. Weakest major, I suppose, thrilling coaster at the park, in my opinion. Then we have Galactica. I wasn't too fond of the VR, but it is still higher up than some of the other rides, obviously. Otherwise, it would be a 19. At 10, we've got the Big Dipper, slightly beating out Galactica for the 10th spot. 9, we've got the Wild Mouse, which a lot of people do actually hold pretty highly in their Blackpool Pleasure Beach rankings. I just think it's a really fun little ride. Yeah, granted it is rough because it's old, but I just think it's a great ride. Tipping that though, we have got Rita. I find it rough, and it's not one of my favourites at the Towers. It's probably, in my opinion, the weakest of all the major thrill rides there. The Big Six Challenge, which is supposedly returning this year. Number 7, we've got 13, just beating out Rita. Oh, by the way, when I was saying major thrill rides, that's as in being air, not Galactica, by the way. Just had to put that one out there. 6, we've got the Grand National, not the horse race. Obviously, the Julie Morbius Loop. Was it Mobius Loop coaster at the Pleasure Beach? Really good. Interactions there are great, and it is the best wooden coaster on the park. At 5, we've got the big one. A lot of people consider this their number 1 for Pleasure Beach, although for me, Revolution takes it, and you'll see that later on. At 4, we've got the Smiler here. 3, as I said, there's Revolution. 2 is Oblivion, which a lot of people don't hold that highly, but for me, it was my first dive coaster, and I suppose it's just closer to my heart than the other coasters. And I do find the drop really, really fun. It's a really forceful. It could be longer, but I don't mind it being just that drop. And then obviously at number 1, we have got Nemesis, scoring the maximum 19 points. So here is the list. You can have one last look at it, and then we're going to move on now. Here are the scores. So you'll be seeing this page quite a lot. This is the format, how it's going to work. We'll reveal Alton scores and then Blackpool Pleasure Beach's scores. So Alton, after the first round, they had the top 2 spots, and they have taken 101 points out of that first round. How will the Pleasure Beach respond? They will respond with, if you're good at mental maths, you'll have worked it out, 89 points. So they are 12 points, I believe, off the Towers at the minute. So it's not impossible to come back, but we'll see how they do in the next round, which is flat rides. There isn't actually that many flat rides among the two parks. Obviously, Towers are always slated for their lack of flat rides, especially after the removal of Ripsaw. There is only 5, I believe, between the two, and I won't reveal these ones one by one. These will come out as the whole group. So here they are. At number 5, we've got Airbender. 4, Skyforce. So 2 of the Pleasure Beach's flat rides are actually at the bottom there. That's then followed by Blade, which I actually think is underrated, to be fair. People call it just a pirate ship, but it is probably the best pirate ship, swinging ship ride I've ever been on. Then we've got Ice Blast, which is again underrated. People don't say it's that good, but then again, drop towers are a lot more forceful than it, and there's no airtime at the top, which is disappointing. And then at number 1 is Enterprise, because it's really nice. There's some weird forces on it that's really cool, so that scores the maximum 5 points. How does this affect the scores then? Alton Towers are now on 109 points. The Pleasure Beach catching up with 96. Next up, the category for this one is water rides. There are 7 water rides between the two parks, and it works the same as the last 2 rounds. Are you getting this yet? It says at the side, basically 7 points for the winner, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it then goes. And I'm pretty sure you can tell who's going to win this round on points alone, being that the Pleasure Beach has 5 water rides and the Towers at the minute only has 2 after the removal of the flume. There you go, Dora's World Voyage. It's just a standard water ride, not that cool. It's alright though, and it's got a nice soundtrack to it. Rugrats Lost River is alright, you get pretty wet for what it is. SpongeBob Splash Bash is awesome, I really love it. It doesn't beat out the Battle Galleons though, they're both a kind of similar ride, but Splash Bash is more of a flat ride, whereas Galleons has some nice theming, it has a good soundtrack, well it uses the Mutiny Bay soundtrack from what I'm aware. River Caves is a nice dark ride. Congo River Rapids is the best currently water ride at the Towers, unless they were to bring something in, which would be nice. And then finally, at the number 1 spot, it is Valhalla. I mean, if I put anything other than Valhalla at the top, it would have been a huge, huge shock. I think we all expected that one. The effect this has on the scores then. Alton Towers are on 119, and catching up after that round is Blackpool Pleasure Beach on 113. Next up we have the Kids Rides category, and each park gets 1 point for every ride listed on the family section on the park's respective websites. And this isn't going to be listed, as I said before. Now, this may not be accurate at the time you're watching it, but at the time I'm making it, I'm pretty sure it's accurate. Walkthroughs and shows weren't counted during the count-up. So we'll start off with Alton Towers, who score 11 points, and Blackpool Pleasure Beach have scored 13 points on this round. Obviously, Blackpool catching up 2 points on the Towers. That does put the scores at 130 for the Towers and 126 for Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Next up, we've got the theming. Each park's theming for this round is going to be rated out of 10, and its score will be added to the current total. Now, both parks do utilise some decent theming. You'll see who pips it though, and I'll explain why afterwards. So Alton has scored 6 points, and Blackpool has only scored 3 points. So that is mainly because Alton uses themed areas, and they are pretty well themed. I mean, there's nothing on like such sort of midway attractions which use really nice theming, which is pretty surprising. However, it is nicer themed areas. They are cool, it's pretty immersive in times. I really like the Galactica and Smiler theming around the park as well. Whereas Blackpool Pleasure Beach is more of an amusement park. I mean, some of the rides such as Valhalla and Wallace and Gromit, as you can see there, are really nicely themed, and that is really what has picked it. got them the 3 points they need to they desperately need to stop them from falling behind, but they do miss out 3 points only for the Pleasure Beach to Alton's 6. The effect this has on the scores then, Alton Towers have got 136. Will they remain in the lead? I mean, it's pretty obvious considering they just gained 3 points on Blackpool, but it is 129 to the Pleasure Beach. Next up, we have got operations, and each park is going to be given a score out of 5, and obviously the total is added up. So operations for me, these two parks are pretty weak for me. Alton get 3 out of 5 and Blackpool only get 2, and that's because recently, the past 2 trips I've had to the Pleasure Beach, granted they were technically off peak, the staff were lousy, they weren't being fast in dispatching the trains, and they had one tray running on everything. And Alton isn't too much better. They do close rides down just because they don't need them open. But Alton's operations is overall better than the Towers. The staff are a lot better there, and a lot more motivated, it seems. Moving to the scores after this round then, Alton are on 139 and Blackpool Pleasure Beach still tagging along, only 8 behind though, are on 131. Prices then, only one park can win this round, and they do win 5 whole points to gain on the other person or to get a bigger lead on the other person based on who's won. And I can tell you now that it's pretty obvious who's going to win. It is, of course, Blackpool Pleasure Beach. And I have just used that adult standard 1 ticket price online, but the discounts online don't count for this. So Blackpool do win. I believe it's almost like half of Alton Towers' admission price to get into Blackpool. Granted, you are getting more at the Towers. I don't think it's justified to be double Pleasure Beach. So Pleasure Beach is really good price-wise. So the effect that has on the scores, Alton Towers remain at 139, whereas Pleasure Beach only 3 points off them now are on 136. Can they catch them moving in to the final round, which is going to be a final score out of 10 for atmosphere, which is taking into account things like staff morale, as I said earlier, friendliness of the staff, and the cleanliness of the park, just kind of things along that line, just to build the atmosphere, to make it a really nice place to go. And it is going to be Alton scoring 7 points. Pleasure Beach will need to score 10 in order to catch them, and I believe to draw, but they don't do that, they only score 6. So that takes us to the scores page, in which the Towers have got 146 and Blackpool Pleasure Beach have got 142. And that does wrap up the competition then. As you can see here, Alton Towers has only just by 4 points beaten out Blackpool Pleasure Beach and has taken the victory on this one. Tell me which park you think is the best by clicking the I right now, or by telling me in the comments. Go debate it down there. Do you think Alton Towers are worthy winners? Until next time, guys, thanks for watching and goodbye.